Welcome to another edition of Cal's Corner Radio Show here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. And the executive producer of the show is, once again, the one and only Rob McConnell. Now, folks, as I've mentioned probably in almost every episode of Cal's Corner Radio, we cover everything from politics to the paranormal, which is almost an infinite variety of subjects. Today, we're going to cover several different ones across the map. But I want to start by, again, thanking you for tuning in every week, and hopefully we'll continue to grow here. Your feedback on the show has been just tremendous and very much appreciated. The reaction has been overwhelmingly positive, much better than I thought it would be. And I just wanted to thank all of you, and I really mean it. We'll have some more exciting guests in the near future, and we'll take on a lot of very widespread subjects of interest. Okay, let's get through this because it's going to be a full, busy show. The first thing I'd like to announce is that there is a new investigative TV series that is coming, and it is now in production, pre-production actually, to lock down what will be 6 TV episodes. And it's going to basically provide the definitive verdict on different cases and subjects which are of interest to people worldwide. It will air worldwide on Simul TV Network, and I'll give you more information about it as things get to the point where we can release it. I am honored to be given this chance to be the executive producer of this show, and I will be in it, as well as there will be other guests, and the filming locations will literally be around the world with inputs from there. And it, again, drives home the point that this stuff is really universal, and it's about time that it reached that critical mass. So I'll keep you all posted. Again, we're in pre-production, and we're just going to move forward, and they will be airing in the near future. Okay, let's get to more important things, at least from a global perspective, things that affect us all. Let's talk about, real quickly, the summit that has been canceled with communist North Korea, abruptly canceled in a letter that American President Donald Trump sent to the communist dictator, who, of course, brutalizes his people, and he lords over them in North Korea. There never has been a humane communist government in the history of humanity. There never will be. People who apologize for socialism or communism especially just don't have their facts straight. Okay, so Trump sends a letter that basically says, I think it would be inappropriate at this time to meet, considering your North Korea's recent hostile statements. And I want to say that as both a human being and someone interested in the subject, as well as a journalist who's covered North Korea a lot, as well as Donald Trump, especially during the presidential campaign, I was actually one of the few journalists who predicted Trump would win over Hillary. I never swallowed the Hillary Kool-Aid, and I don't support Trump. I did not vote for him. I did not vote for Hillary either. But I did predict he would win because I understood the mood of the American people. I can relate to a lot of it, but in my opinion, Trump is not the answer. So the point is, what's been going on with North Korea and Trump canceling it, Trump was right to do it, and he deserves credit for seizing the initiative. Because imagine if he had said nothing and he continued to take a few more insults and put up with lies from North Korea, because North Korea does lie a lot, and they make threats all the time to wipe out the United States, just like Iran threatens to wipe out America and Israel. This is a pattern with totalitarian regimes. They often threaten other countries' existence, actually entire races at times in history. And what happens is if Trump had not acted, we can't say with 100% certainty, because none of us are psychic, despite what some people claim, North Korea probably would have found some phony pretext to cancel the meeting, and the result will be the same: no summit. So what North Korea has immediately said, because Trump seized the initiative, at least he's that smart of a businessman in this instance to have done the right thing, he seizes the initiative back from North Korea. He cancels the summit, says, I'm willing to talk anytime, trying to make this work, contact me, write me, whatever. It's a very nice letter, and Trump says he dictated every single word, and it does sound like Trump's words and English, because he has a rather curious way of speaking, meaning unique, as we all do. And now North Korea has just suddenly announced, very recently in the last hour or so, that, we still want to meet. Okay, we'll work it out. Now, does that mean they're really going to do that? No, it doesn't prove it. But look how fast it took for North Korea to say, okay, wait, let's try to still meet. We'll work it out. And for those who hate Trump, and it's probably half of the United States voters because they're still upset that Queen Hillary didn't win, and let's say Hillary had won the election, half the country would still be upset that Donald Trump didn't win. It was a very polarized country right now. It's more the disunited States of America than or divided States of America rather than the United States of America. If you look at what is going on, people will attack Trump and say, well, you blew the summit. That is not true, and it's an outright lie, or it's stated by people who are ignorant of what happened. Let me tell you briefly what happened, which was a key game changer in deciding why Trump opted to suddenly move to cancel the summit. What happened is some preparatory staff for the summit, logistics people, security people, etc., the usual people who go to a country ahead of time before there is a summit between the president of the United States and whomever, whatever world leader or event, they went to meet their North Korean counterparts, whom they've never met before. And not only would these people not even answer the phone, they didn't even show up at the arranged and agreed upon places and times. They just didn't show. And the United States team went back thinking, what the heck is going on? And I'm sure they used a lot stronger words than heck. So it was that instant that said, they're not being straight with people. And they decided to cancel the summit, especially when these antics were followed by this ridiculous rhetoric protesting the upcoming military operations and joint field operations with South Korea that the United States has on an annual basis. North Korea is saying that violates the spirit of the summit. No, it doesn't. North Korea has known that these things happen, these war exercises, every single year. North Korea conducts their equivalent minimum of the same things. And so it was just games. Trump saw through it. He sees the initiative. He says, I don't think it's a good time at this time, nor is it in the interests of either party, meaning North Korea or the U.S., to meet at the summit. He's right to put it that way. He didn't close the door entirely, but he said, until you stop the game, I ain't playing. I'm not going to play a game. So North Korea has said, okay, we'll work it out. We remain committed to peace. We remain committed to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Well, that would mean that North Korea, by any sane definition, would have to give up its nuclear weapons. From North Korea's point of view, it might mean that we get to keep our nukes, only we'll put them under international supervision as much as any country's arsenal ever is. And there's debates about that as well. To assume that we know exactly the location of all the nuclear missiles from China and Russia or Pakistan or India would be, very naive and actually foolish. So that's what's going on with North Korea. And it's actually a step forward because at the end of the day, regardless of what you think of Trump, and the issue is independent of Trump, North Korea needs this agreement more than the rest of the world does, because if Trump wanted to, he could just let them twist in the wind and North Korea would permanently become China's problem. And China would rather have North Korea continue to act as a useful idiot type country or a sock puppet to do its dirty deeds. We must remember that there were two abrupt, impromptu, secret meetings between the leader of North Korea and communist China. The leader of North Korea flew twice to meet the Chinese leader, of course, and they met and talked in secret before North Korea started meeting with key officials in South Korea as well as the United States. And of course, North Korea is working in cahoots with communist China on whatever it is they're going to eventually do, whether it's get rid of the nukes or go back to being a brazen belligerent. North Korea supposedly has finally destroyed its nuclear bomb test site facility. The only problem is that they broke their promise to do it in front of a global audience, which included scientists and inspectors. Instead, you have to kind of take their word for it and look at their video footage of things being blown up. The reality is that North Korea has destroyed its facility, but the question remains, to what degree? Is it completely destroyed so it's not usable, or was just enough done to claim that it has been destroyed, with the word destroyed being relative to the observer? The problem with North Korea's claims of having destroyed it at all, even if they've completely have done it, is we must remember why they're in this position. What happened is this nuclear test site facility was built by the Russians, and it was never designed to last forever. And what happened is they blew up too many nukes, and they made the site unstable. And Chinese seismologists even went on the public record last year warning North Korea and the world that if they detonate another nuke, there's only so many inches of a buffer left in the layers of the protective, internals of this cave, that it's going to cause a leak of radiation and a collapse, and it's going to spill radioactivity into southern China. And of course, China wouldn't be happy with that. And I know this is true because I reported on it from India and wrote about it, and those articles were published. And so what happened is North Korea blew up another bomb shortly after. China got really mad at that point. I reported on that story as well. And then all of a sudden, amazingly, North Korea suddenly says, let's just blow up this facility and we want to be peaceful, good guys now. Well, come on, you'd have to be pretty naive to buy that. But at least the bottom line is a good one, which means that apparently their big rogue nuclear testing facility is now going to be inoperable. The problem is they can't really restore it. And around 100 people died recently when some tunnels collapsed. That was in the news, I think, about 2 months ago in North Korea, as they were trying to figure out and salvage what they could of this facility. And of course, it ended up not being possible. So the world waits on the issue of North Korea. Right now, the summit is on, but the date has yet to be determined, and both sides still say they want to meet. We'll be back after this break, and we'll talk about other subjects.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV. Plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com.
Welcome back to the Cal's Corner radio show here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, we talked about North Korea in the first segment. Now let's switch to another equally important, if not more important, subject, which is the conflict that continues to go on between Iran, Israel, Iran, the United States, Hamas, Israel, etc. It's all related. All right. As we know, and the liberal media has been up in arms over this, of course, because as a rule, they tend to be anti-Israel. Let's be blunt. They're upset that dozens of Palestinians were killed in the recent major clashes with Israeli troops at the Gaza border that the terrorist group Hamas rules over, which is, again, the area known as Gaza. Hamas illegally seized Gaza in a violent coup in 2007 when its terrorists murdered some 650 Palestinian National Authority, both security forces and personnel, in a violent coup that ousted Palestinian National Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas, who was forced to flee to the West Bank, where he has been holed up ever since then. The reason I keep mentioning this over and over is because I am personally, as a journalist and human being, sick and tired of hearing apologists for Hamas and Jew and Israeli haters and just naive millennials and other people saying, well, Hamas is a legitimate government. They were elected. No, they weren't. To be honest, they had one election, and it was George Bush's idea, by the way, along with Condoleezza Rice. Their dumb idea, and it was a dumb idea, was let's give this terrorist group a taste of democracy, and once they realize how good that feels, and if they win, they'll be moderate guys. Well, that's like saying to Adolf Hitler, here's a nuclear bomb. Now that I've given it to you, I'm trusting you're not going to, launch it on somebody. It's just plain stupid. And I remember as a reporter covering this years ago, and I was like, I couldn't believe, first of all, he blows it in Iraq. Now he does this. So guess what happens? Hamas wins the election fair and square against the PNA because from the average view of the Palestinian who was caught between a rock and a rock place, two losing situations, Hamas was deemed at that time in the minds of most Palestinians as being a more trustworthy entity, one that really cared about the people, one that was not full of corrupt because they're supposedly Islamic holy men and all that other nonsense. And what happened is they found out the hard way, the Palestinians have, that it's just another thug group that is corrupt. And so what happened is after Arafat died and Abbas and the PNA were weakened because Abbas was not Arafat, Hamas exploited that opportunity, staged their violent coup, overthrew the government, has refused to allow free and fair elections since that time, has lied about forming a unity government, refuses to recognize the existence of Israel, says that Palestine must never have any Jews. Imagine if Israel had said that Israel must never have any Palestinians. Even though over 1 million of them live in Israel, the world would be outraged and would condemn Israel for that view, and they would be right to do so. But nobody condemns Hamas for doing it, at least at a level that matters, including the mainstream media. And the mainstream media no longer describes Hamas as a terrorist group. I mean, they may mention it here and there, but instead of saying the terrorist group Hamas, which is the accurate 100% way to describe this entity, same with the terrorist group Islamic State, the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, the Nazi Party of Germany, again, there's nothing wrong or politically incorrect with telling the truth like that. In fact, one of the things that bothers me as a human being and journalist today is I'm old school. I don't believe in being politically correct or blunt. I think it's another way of being phony. And if you tell the truth, even if you don't like that truth, you're not being politically incorrect. You're being correct. It's politically incorrect to lie or skirt around the issue. And yet in today's world, it's just opposite. It's like black is white and white is purple. It makes no sense. But yet this is the way the country and the world seems to be going. And social media isn't helping this, meaning the misuse of social media. So what happened is a few days ago, there were depending on the reports, there were dozens again of Palestinians that were killed. And it was called a massacre by the media. And you can Google this. There are many descriptions of saying it's a massacre. The Israeli forces just mowed down these innocent people. Well, that wasn't true. It turns out that around 50 of the people killed, hello, Hamas has admitted were terrorists, were their own militant operatives. And then 3 of the people killed, who had nothing to do with Hamas, were considered and recognized officially by another terrorist group, a buddy of Hamas's, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ. They said they lost 3 of their martyrs, and they admitted they were militants too, which means terrorists. So if you have 53 people dead out of supposedly around 64, and 53 of the 64, if we want to use those numbers, are terrorists, where's the massacre? Hello? No, there's no massacre. In fact, I'm sorry that Israel got only 53 terrorists. I wish they'd gotten 5,300. That would be the end of Hamas. Because as far as I'm concerned, and I think one can logically argue, Hamas has no more right to exist than Al-Qaeda does or the Islamic State. Why should one terrorist group be allowed to exist, especially when it's not even put into power by the people it claims to represent? Why should it be allowed to exist while the Islamic State is being exterminated, or Al-Qaeda? What the hell are we smoking when we have this double standard? Well, it's wrong, and it's not going to solve the problem. It's only going to make it worse. Okay? So the latest coverage on this has been a disaster. The mainstream media, the usual jokers on the left, are saying this was a massacre. The fact they were terrorists who were killed, admitted by Palestinian Islamic Jihad to be terrorists, as well as Hamas, who lost apparently 50 of their so-called martyrs. Why shouldn't we be throwing a party or declaring a holiday? It's a good day at the office when you eliminate one terrorist, let alone 50. Now, we must remember that Hamas and these other groups will say they are resistance fighters. They are freedom fighters. And I have heard from so many young people, as well as liberals and Democrats and left-wingers, that freedom fighters are terrorists in the eyes of one person, and one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, blah, blah, blah. That argument has never been true. Again, I wrote about this many years ago because it is such a lie that it's like claiming the world is flat. No, it's not. It never has been. So the point is, terrorism, by its universal definition, is the deliberate, systematic targeting of innocent people for the purposes of political or social change. That's it. I'm going to blow up this restaurant and kill a bunch of innocent people, and maybe I'll scare the government into giving me what I want. That's terrorism. I'm going to terrorize people. Same word. Now, freedom fighters don't target innocent people. Instead, if they have a beef with the government, they target government facilities, military troops, the police, government officials. They don't make a point to target innocent people, men, women, and children. That's the difference between a freedom fighter and a terrorist. And the left-wing liberals, unfortunately, intermix the words as if they mean nothing or the same thing, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They're clueless. And to see this repeated on main networks and in major publications, this includes everything from MSNBC to CNN to New York Times, it is disgraceful. And, you know, I don't profess to be an expert on this stuff. I've never said Kal Korff expert on whatever. But I figure if I know at least this much, then people who really are experts about this, people who have much deeper, more accomplished pedigree than I do as a journalist, if they aren't understanding this, and I do, there's no excuse. And I'm saying this not from an egotistical standpoint. I'm saying it from the heart here. Because one of the reasons I got into this subject is because I got frustrated by the loopy la craziness that has happened ever since around the millennium. And it was bad enough that it started off with a bunch of New Age stuff where a certain segment of the people believed the earth was going to end. You may remember the Heaven's Gate cult and things like that. Well, Dr. Paul Kurtz and I, the late Dr. Paul Kurtz, a wonderful, incredible man, and I were warning the media that there were people who were going to kill themselves because historically this has happened every 100 years. It's called millennial madness, or at the end of the century, people believe the world's ending or Jesus is going to come back or whatever. And they lose it and kill themselves. And the media just didn't care about the subject, thought it was ridiculous. And then Heaven's Gate cult suicide occurred. And then all of a sudden, MSNBC is featuring Kurtz and I and did in a piece. And suddenly we could do no wrong because our prediction was right. Well, the same happened with terrorism. It was obvious to me, living in Seattle at the time in the U.S., that Al-Qaeda was going to be the next big thing as the year 2000 kicked in, because I was downtown in Seattle on December 31st, 1999, trying to enjoy New Year's Eve, and they had shut down the Space Needle. Well, they shut down the Space Needle because a terrorist was captured coming in through Canada. He had explosives in his car. He ran and was apprehended. He was affiliated with Al-Qaeda. He didn't get direct orders from Osama bin Laden. And he was going to go try to blow up either the Space Needle or drive all the way down to Los Angeles and blow up something at the airport there. So as a precaution, what happened was they shut down the Space Needle and the country was put on alert. And I remember that thinking, boy, this is really a lousy way to spend my one and only millennium I'll ever experience. But I was smart enough to realize, having followed the subject for a bit, that this is the next gravest threat to the existence of the human race, which are these rogue nations emerging with non-state actors, terrorists. And I understood what terrorism was. So we'll be back after this commercial break, and we'll continue here on Kal's Corner Radio.
Broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond. You're watching the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Demo.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, They conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back to Cal's Corner here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. This is segment 3. So let's get back to what we were talking about. Again, what had happened in Israel between the terrorist groups Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, leaving the United States in 1999 to go live in Europe, not being able to celebrate, in my case, on the millennial New Year's Eve, the way that most people in America did, because Seattle was the only area that had been shut down in response to the arrest of Rashad Mossad, I believe was his name, or maybe it was Ahmed Rashad, who was apprehended coming into Canada on a ferry with a car that was full of explosives. And an alert customs agent, a female, had caught him and thankfully prevented what would have been an attack. So as I went to Europe, was really involved in the subject, there were some terrorist incidents that occurred here and there. It wasn't like it was years later with the Islamic State making a point to target France and Germany. Al-Qaeda's interest wasn't so much in that as it was more the United States trying to survive in Afghanistan secretly, as well as fleeing across the border into Pakistan. But there were some incidents there. There was a attack on a train in Spain where the Spanish government, after that attack that killed many people, caved and essentially agreed to pull out their troops from Iraq and just cut their involvement in the so-called war against terrorism. And of course, the government pretty much collapsed over that and had to go through a re-election and all that. It was a cowardly thing to do, to cave into terrorism, but Spain has never been known to be tough against terrorists consistently, and same with France at that time. We have to remember that at that time, France was under the leadership of the corrupt former president, Jacques Chirac. And he was a buddy of Saddam Hussein. In fact, he made millions of dollars and billions of dollars for French industrialists, who, of course, were his financiers, because Saddam Hussein made sure, and France made sure, and Chirac made sure, having personally brokered a lot of these deals, that France was one of Iraq's key arms supplier. In fact, Jacques Chirac was so two-faced, let's put it politely, that what he did is he made sure that he sold Saddam Hussein a nuclear reactor. It was called Osirak. And what happened is Israel objected and said, look, he's going to make a nuclear bomb. Don't do this. Mossad unleashed secret operations that killed top Iraqi nuclear scientists who were actually, believe it or not, one of them was killed after being with a prostitute in France. Mossad would follow these guys in France. They'd kill them, the way their hit teams do. And what would happen is Chirac's guys would get upset and do something against Israel in retaliation. When the reactor was ready to go to Iraq, it was stored in a warehouse to be put on a ship. And what happened is Mossad commandos went into that shipyard, blew up parts of the reactor, but didn't damage it enough so that it was permanently destroyed, and left a note claiming responsibility for the explosion in the hands of some environmental group that no one's ever heard of since. And what happened is Chirac felt personally insulted by that attack and decided that what he would do is cover the cost of repairing the reactor core free, not charge Saddam Hussein, and then still ship the reactor to him. That's exactly what France did. So Israel's Mossad continued to monitor the activity, and what they did is they decided to launch a top-secret operation, one of the code names of which was Orange. And what they did is they went ahead and flew fighters low over the desert all the way to Iraq, struck the nuclear reactor, was able to punch a hole in its dome with the first bomb, and then drop the other bombs through that hole. Only one missed. And then what happened is they took off, and the Iraqi personnel who were manning the anti-aircraft guns at the nuclear reactor at Osirak never saw what happened because the Israelis came in from the direction of the sun, so they would have been firing into the sun. The operation was successful, and that preventative measure taken during the Reagan administration by Israel without the USA's advanced knowledge, Israel just struck unilaterally, prevented Saddam Hussein from developing as he was boasting in the media. You can actually look up those press clippings. He wanted to be the first leader who had the first Arab bomb, because of course he was Arab. So you can thank Israel for taking those preventative measures. And in the case of Hamas, Israel has tried to tell the world, at least those reporters who will listen, that these are not innocent Palestinian protesters. They are people being manipulated by Hamas and being used essentially as cannon fodder, and that the reason Hamas is doing this is because they're trying to distract from the fact that Hamas, as a government, putting their people first in Gaza, has failed. You know, it's pretty sad that Hamas spends its money building weapons and smuggling tunnels and terrorist tunnels. They just have found a few more in Israel. They've closed them now. These are tunnels that are dug underground that go up into Israeli territory. Hamas terrorists go into those tunnels, come up into Israeli territory, will either take prisoners or they'll murder people and go back into the tunnels. And Israel has destroyed a couple of these. They've destroyed terrorists on the first day of these protests who were part of the tunnel digging militant group of Hamas. Now, again, peaceful, innocent protesters don't do this. They don't throw Molotov cocktails. They don't even throw stones at you. I've actually engaged some people on social media who have told me, especially Muslims, that, hey, this is not fair. Israel has guns and we only have stones. Well, the fact you have a stone in the first place is a problem. You know, think through the logic here. If you pick a stone up and you come up to a police officer and you say, "Officer, look at me," and you throw your arm back as if you're going to throw that stone at the officer, whether you do or not, what do you think that officer's going to do? Do you think he's just going to wait and say, "Go ahead"? No. What he's going to do the moment he knows you're trying to hurt him is he's going to try to defend himself. And that may mean even killing you because he doesn't know what you're going to do other than you are threatening him and trying to harm him. I support the principle of the U.S. law called stand your ground. If someone comes to you within, say, 20, 21 feet with a knife, you have a right to stand your ground and defend yourself. If you're armed or whatever, you have a right to self-defense in most U.S. states. In some European countries, and especially in other countries around the world, you absolutely don't. It's ridiculous, and it gets a lot of people killed. Look at the amazing, incredibly high number of people in Great Britain who get stabbed because nobody has any weapons except the bad guys, it seems, over there. So what happens is, in the case of Israel and Hamas, Israel's both defensive and proactive. They told people ahead of time, these are not innocent protesters. And now there are videos you can actually see on YouTube of Palestinians who have worked with Hamas, and they admit that, yeah, what Hamas does is they get a bunch of buses together. They tell the people days ahead of time that you have to go to this area. We're going to bus you to protest. They seek out women and children, make a point to put these people first in harm's way, telling the Palestinians, don't worry, the Jews won't shoot children and women. Yet out the other side of their mouth, they'll say, look at the Israeli IDF is massacres of killers of women and children. So they're trying to have it both ways. And that basically they pay them money to just cause problems for Israel. And so this is not how peaceful protest operates. The way the Palestinians can easily solve their problem is if they just let go of hatred. As famed former Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir once said, essentially, according to reports, that basically the moment if the day ever comes that the Palestinians love their children more than they hate Jews, then we'll have peace in the world. And whether she actually used those exact words or not, she's purported to have basically said that, it's still a valid point. It doesn't matter who said those words, because we have to remember that, let's say today Hamas said, okay, we're not going to be a terrorist group anymore. We're going to be just like the Boy Scouts. Oh, I'm sorry. We can't say Boy Scouts. We can only say the Scouts now because we have to be politically correct. And anyway, I don't even want to go there, but here we go. So, and then let's say the PNA says, Abbas says, I'm going to stop denying the Holocaust. I want to be like Boy Scouts too and, join Hamas and we'll negotiate for peace. Well, who actually speaks for the Palestinians? There's two Palestines now. There's one in Gaza, ruled by Hamas, illegally. Then there's one illegally ruled by the PNA. So is there a single spokesman for Hamas? or the Palestinians. It depends on who you ask. Abbas says he speaks for all of them. Hamas didn't get the memo. So how can you have peace when you don't even have a single entity to try to make peace with? And then you have a division, clear division, in how the leader of the different two Palestinian factions view things. Hamas says, no, Israel does not have a right to exist. We won't negotiate. Every inch of Palestine belongs to us. In fact, they're such liars, they even say that Gaza is occupied territory. Israel pulled out of Gaza years ago, many years ago. I think it was something like 14 different settlements and everything were uprooted. They even pulled out of areas beyond Gaza. So Israel's not there. They said, it's not worth it. We're out of here. And they let Hamas just twist in the wind, and Hamas has run itself into the ground ever since then. And it continues to do so. And then, of course, they lie again, saying there's this big boycott going on. You know, Israel has essentially blockaded Gaza. Yes and no. A blockade means you cut things off, you keep things from coming in and out. But that's not what Israel really does. What Israel does is make sure that only certain things come in. Things that are not allowed to come in are what Hamas has been repeatedly busted for: smuggling, even drugs, weapons, especially missiles. That stuff's not allowed. And now Israel rightfully is not allowing tires temporarily, because what did the Palestinians do? They set tens of thousands of them on fire, harming the atmosphere for everyone, including Palestinian children. That's how, self-destructive they are, to use a mild example. So what Egypt did, as well as Israel, is they worked together in corralling off Gaza, and they control what goes in and out of that country, making sure that Hamas doesn't play games, Iran is not sending in weapons, etc. That is not the same thing as a blockade. That is not the same thing as trying to choke something off. That's, again, lies by Hamas. We'll be back after this break.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes. finds a locket or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment of Cal's Corner Radio. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. And again, the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now let's wind up the issue about Hamas, Iran, Israel, etc. Let's tie it all together. That way, this is not just some, brain tangent. Again, it does affect everybody, and here's a short summary of why. The fact is, there cannot be peace with the Palestinians until there is a single, unified, transparent, accountable, and trustworthy Palestinian government that is committed to peace rather than terrorism. That does not exist. There's no single leader of the Palestinians. It is not possible to have a separate peace with either group. The idea that if peace is struck with Hamas or Abbas, the other guy will fall in line, that's beyond stupid. It's not going to happen. So you can forget about that. Until that change occurs, it's not going to happen. Now, then you have Israel. Israel's not going to stand around and wait for the Palestinians to get their act together. They're moving on with their life, and they have the right to do it. In fact, one of the things that is pure hypocrisy is when Trump gets criticized by the Democrats and Trump haters for moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, which is the capital of Israel, whether the Palestinians recognize it or care for it or not, or regardless of what the UN says. The UN has no right nor legal authority to tell a country what its capital city is. No, they don't. They're deluding themselves. There's no such provision. You try to look it up. It does not exist. So it doesn't matter what the UN says. It's full of, when it appoints countries like Syria and Cuba and Saudi Arabia to oversee things like human and women's rights, it has no credibility. It has no morality, just empty words. And so what happens is Israel's moving on. Several countries now have moved their embassies to Jerusalem. And you can easily find, I posted it on my Facebook page, a video that shows President Bill Clinton, President Barack Obama, President George Bush, and President Donald Trump all saying over the years how they were not only going to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, but that Jerusalem must never be divided, and it is the eternal capital of Israel. Well, that's what Trump is saying. That's what Netanyahu is saying. That's what most Jews believe. So for you to criticize Trump over this, for actually keeping a promise that the other presidents broke, shame on you. That's hypocrisy. Now, why should anyone care whether the Israelis or Hamas or the Palestinians ever make peace? How does it affect them? Well, it does affect them because Hamas and the anti-Semitism that goes with the existence of a group like Hamas, where you hate Jews or deny Israel's rights to exist, they become proxies and have been usurped and are fueled and funded and supported by countries like Iran who support terrorism. We must remember that Iran remains the greatest sponsor of terrorism, and the idea behind the nuclear agreement with Iran was to keep them from putting a nuclear weapon into the hands of the terrorists that it sponsors. And so Iran gets all these rewards in exchange for not making a nuke. In other words, to use an analogy, let's say that I had the ability to make a nuclear bomb, and I was going to give it to a terrorist that I support. And then all of a sudden I let it be known that, if you pay me money, I won't do this, okay? And then, of course, you have an American president and some politicians who will bend over backwards and say, okay, here's billions of dollars. We'll remove all the sanctions. Just don't do this and agree not to do it. And we'll take a few steps that kind of make us convinced you're not doing it, although we can't really verify that you're not cheating on the agreement. So basically, we're going to pay you to not nuke people. Well, if you apply that principle to everything, then you can start paying people not to rob banks. The world couldn't function that way. But that's exactly one of the key problems with the Iranian nuclear agreement. I want negotiations so that the agreement is improved so that Iran can never make a nuclear bomb rather than just delay the time to when they can break out and make one in a short period of time. They should be thoroughly disarmed from that capability. That is what a real agreement like this is supposed to guarantee. So I don't blame Trump for canceling the agreement. What I do blame him for is I think he should have continued to negotiate a bit further and then move forward to try to change the agreement. If Iran didn't agree, then cancel it, because Iran needs it more than the rest of the world. So now what has happened is Iran has a decision to make. Either they're going to go back to being belligerent and try to make a bomb, and then the world is going to be a more unsafe place. There'll be a nuclear arms race that'll explode in the Middle East, with Saudi Arabia and other countries wanting nukes as well because they're enemies of Iran. And that's a religious issue, not just geopolitical. It's like letting a genie out of the bottle that you're never going to be able to put back in again nor contain. And you want to try to avoid that scenario. So now you have Russia's Vladimir Putin. He is now stepping in because of what the U.S. has done via Trump to try to save the nuclear deal or put something in there so that Iran's ability to ever make a nuke is permanently stopped. Now, it's not that Iran is pushing for that, but what they're trying to do is Iran wants to be able to move forward with certain things and not go back under sanctions, because at the end of the day, the UN sanctions that start to trigger in several months basically will penalize any companies that do business with Iran. And because the U.S. is such a powerhouse economically, a lot of European businesses will say, well, I want Iran's money, but I value the freedom that dealing with America not being blacklisted gives me, so I'll just dump Iran as well. On the hand with Putin, it strengthens his hand geopolitically, makes him a larger key player in that issue. You have to remember the Russians sold Iran their nuclear reactor. The U.S. did not. And on the other hand, if Putin doesn't work with the U.S. on this, it's not going to fly. Putin's not going to waste his time and say, I'm just going to do something unilaterally, and then the United States can go do whatever it's going to do. No, he needs to work with the U.S. on this, and that's a sensitive issue because you have people still believing, right or wrong, that Trump colluded with Putin to defeat Queen Hillary and deny her the White House. And although there's no credible evidence for that has emerged, one has to separate between collusion as in a quid pro quo versus people around Trump who years before Trump even ran for president were, of course, working with the Russians and the Ukrainians. And that includes, by the way, the brother of former Clinton campaign manager John Podesta. The Podestas have long been involved with even Paul Manafort, who now stands indicted for money laundering and working with the Ukrainians and receiving millions of dollars off the books. Well, the Podestas have been involved in that swamp as well. So it's rather disingenuous of the Democrats and Hillary to claim about Russian collusion when their own campaign management has been colluding with the same entities who were doing it for many years. It's just, like Trump says, a swamp, and it's just bad. So with all these geopolitical activities going on, combined with the fact that you have a ideological, geopolitical, and territorial turf wars going on between Saudi Arabia and Iran, between Shia and Sunni Muslims, now you have the recent Iraqi elections where their anti-U.S. and not necessarily pro-Iranian forces are now going to rule that country, including a former terrorist who is a Islamic cleric. Then you have Syria, which Iran effectively controls along with Russia. Then you have Lebanon. Hezbollah has fared well in the recent elections in Lebanon. And Syria, Iran controls now Lebanon. This is why all of this is now suddenly important, because it's different than 5 years ago where none of these dynamics were at this level. And then you have, of course, Iran establishing military bases, forward bases in Syria, right up to the edge of the Golan Heights, which borders Israel. Israel has told Iran, and they're right to feel this way, that we will not accept the advancement of Iranian military interests into Syria, which are really set up as forward bases to attack Israel. So what Israel has done is they have fired around 100 different missiles on different air raids using stealth aircraft and conventional fire aircraft and missiles to destroy Iran's military assets, storage facilities, strategic facilities, communications facilities. And although Iran fired some 50 rockets in retaliation, which hit nothing as a symbolic, we're going to show you, counter gesture, Iran for now has basically backed down because Iran, for all practical purposes, has no air force. All they have are captured planes that Saddam gave them because he didn't want them to fall into American hands during the first Gulf War. You remember the old footage of Iraqi pilots flying their planes into Iranian airspace. Other than that, they've got jets that go back to the time of the Shah. Good luck with those airplanes from the 70s and versus today's aircraft. And so what happens is Israel has defended itself. They've gone on the offensive, which Israel has been known to do, and commendably so. And Iran has so far backed down. Now, does that mean Iran is down and out? They're changing their ways. They're never going to strike back? Absolutely not. What Iran is doing is carefully weighing in their options, because the Iranians are very much like the Chinese. They do think, or try to at least, generations ahead. They don't run their country only one quarter at a time like the U.S. does. So this is why all of this is important, and why the issue of the Palestinians, Iran supporting Hamas, because all of this is ultimately interlinked. This is why it has the potential to affect the entire planet. That's why the Middle East is called the most volatile region on Earth, because it absolutely is. And now the stakes are even bigger, because now all parties are back to the negotiating table to try to see if they can make the Iranian agreement even better, although Iran hates this. And then you have the issue of North Korea. It's not a identical issue on the same scale, but because you have communist China involved in both Pakistan and whatever happens in North Korea, it also is a regional or game changer as well, especially as China has begun to militarize the South Chinese Sea and its artificial islands by putting missiles on them, and of course now landing strips and bombers and fighter aircraft. They're able to punish the U.S. quickly or its enemies should hostilities break out. Okay, thanks for joining us on this episode of Cal's Corner Radio. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you or is someone you know struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com, or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.